All right, college algebra students, I'm going to go ahead and cover now 2.4b, completing the squares. So what we just did in 2.4a was we worked on strategies for quadratics, right? These are quadratics as well, but we are approaching it in a different way. It's giving you like a battery of supported tools that can help you get to the resolve to the answer that we're looking for. Now, I'm going to be straight up honest with you because I'm going to tell you that you could be using the calculator the entire time, and I'm shielding you from that because some of the answers that are provided are irrational values and you can't find them easily. So I'm trying to give you, like I said, a battery of tools so you can use appropriately to figure out some things. Okay, now when you're looking at completing the square in and of itself is a pretty big strategy that we use in, say, for circles, for example. We have equations and circles. So these things go beyond just, it's just to try to annoy you. We don't like to just annoy you. We like to try to give you these things so you can use them in other situations. So it says determine the constant that should be added to the following polynomial so that it becomes a perfect square trinomial. Now, the perfect square trinomial is half of b squared is how you go ahead and create a perfect square. Now, when you use this formula, we also recognize that ax plus by, or bx plus c equals 0. That is the standard forms of a quadratic. And what they did is they provided us with already the a, which is 1, and they provided us with the b, all right, but they did not provide us with the c, and that is the big question mark that will make this a perfect square if we use the perfect square trinomial or perfect square strategy or formula. Now, so all you'll have to do is half this guy. I always say just half the middle guy, and that's going to be 9, and then square it. And that is your answer that you're going to put in this box. And that is the answer we're looking for, is 81. Woohoo! Now, when we're looking at writing a perfect square trinomial in factor form, now the reason I write this down the way I have it is because whatever you put in where I put this check mark, it becomes what you're going to put right next to the x. So that is in factor form the value of the perfect square. It's so easy when all you do is take half of b, and that's what's going to be in the factor form. So take a look at the answer. Wow, looks like I got that one right. Now that was pretty easy. All right. And that is completing square. All right, I'm done. I did my job. Wait a second. I got to make sure I do enough problems so that way you're comfortable with all of it. But what happens if it's a negative? It doesn't, one thing that's different about a negative one is that when you're looking at this, is that the value of our middle term, or I actually should say what we put into the factored form, is going to be that half of that value is going to be negative now. So let's go ahead and take half of 28. All right, and that's going to be 14, but it's negative 14. And then 14 squared is 169. At least I hope so. Maybe I got that one wrong. Yeah, I think maybe I'm right or wrong. I don't know. Let's see. 14 squared. Oh, I did get it wrong. Son of a gun. I switched my x or my 9 and 6. All right. So it's 196. Forgive me, for crying out loud. So now we have that put in here. All right. Not 169, but 196. You know why I knew I was facing the issues? Because 4 times 4 is 16. How is there a 9 at the end of this? So I had my numbers, maybe dyslexia set in. All right, anyway, once we do that, then we're going to go ahead and take the x minus the 14 and put it in a square, and we're done. That's the answer we're looking for in the second one. So here we have that, 196, and then we have the 14 in there. So that's nothing different. Now, consider the following quadratic equation. Determine the constant that should be added to both sides of the equation so that the left side becomes a perfect square trinomial. Now, we know that half of 8 is 4, and 4 squared is 16. So what you do in order to make this happen, is you can kind of start doing this mentally for yourself, but you can go ahead and see that this is going to be plus 16, and then what you do to one side, you must do to the other. So you put plus 16 on this side. So our equation, or our sides of our equation, are still balanced. So when we do this, it's going to give us the half of b, which is the positive 4 squared, and then we go ahead and add these two together, and that's going to give us 64. All right. Then this allows us then to go ahead and use the completing this, or excuse me, the square root property, and which is what we looked at in the other lesson. So we use the square root property to knock this down, and that gives us then plus or minus, and then we have y plus 4 equals plus or minus 8. And then we can go ahead and subtract 4 from both sides and get y equals, and then it's negative 4 added to 8, which is going to give us 4. And then negative 4 minus 8 is going to give us negative 12. So we have our two answers that we can come up with for that process. So the constant is the required constant. It's going to be that 16 that I've just pointed out to you. Solve the quadratic, and I've gone ahead and answered that as for negative 12. So the strategies that we looked at in the previous lesson comes into effect here when we're using the square root property. So it helps us build onto the strategies that we have. So with this, it says consider the quadratic equation. The process does not fail. It's the same exact steps. Would you like me to do this again for you, ladies? No, thank you. No, thank you. Okay, great. So by asking students who are present with me, I assume if they know it, then all of you should know it. All right? Because they're with me because they want to learn, but you are with me virtually through the recording, and I hope that you also are picking up those strategies. So it's very consistent, constant, and you continue to do the process for each of these. All right? You go ahead and use the strategy of half of b squared, complete the square, and then solve for it like I did here. Now, again, some of the things that you need to be aware of is that sometimes you don't have perfect squares. They're going to be irrational values, so you have to be careful. But you do have in that situation occurring in this particular case. So you just have to be careful with what's going on, okay? Don't get nervous. Just do your process, and you're going to get through it. So there's nothing that is alarming in this section that is outside of the parameters of what we just did. I'll go ahead and do number 8 just to show you that there's nothing different. What I would do for this particular problem is that I would go ahead and take the 18 and bring it over to the other side. That way I can use the completing the square process. And notice how I put a plus box here. I put a plus box there because then I go ahead and get the 18, and I'm also going to put a plus box here. Now, this is nothing more than coming back to what we just did up here, and that is half of b is 7, all right, and that's negative 7. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and immediately go like this. I go ahead and jump right into putting it as a perfect square trinomial, or the factoring form of it, and then I go ahead and know that 7 squared is 49. So I'm going to put 49 on this side. And if, again, I'm not confident with, adding, I could just take my calculator and do, 18 plus 49 and get my answer, right? I don't need to sit there and start thinking, oh, I got to prove myself worthy of being able to add. I mean, don't get yourself all worked up about this. So you go ahead and put 76, and then you go ahead and do what we just did before, where we're going ahead and putting plus or minus the square root of 67, and then move the 7 over, and it becomes a positive 7 plus or minus square root of 67. And that is our answer that we're looking for in this question. Boom, done. I mean, I am tearing this up. I am making it so it's easy for you. I hope that the simplicity of the approach is there, and that you should get to understand how to approach it, because it doesn't matter what the numbers are. It's all about the approach. All right, so all this is all the same in this. That's why this lesson is going to go very quickly for you, as long as you yield to those strategies I'm giving you, and you'll be fine. I'm going to leave this as a short video, and if you have any questions, let me know. There's also supportive videos here, and you'll see that there's also examples spread throughout. All right, that'll conclude this recording.